Come to Helmuth Ford, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty.
Hi, this is Stacy from Shetler Insurance Services. Come see me on the east side of the square in Sigourney for all your insurance needs.
2 years ago was the last time you heard me on the radio. That is about to change. Kenny Falls returns to the Keswick Tavern at 117 South Iron Street in Keswick this Saturday, May 17th. Kenny will be playing from 8 to 11 p.m. No cover charge. It'll be a great time while listening to some fantastic music, all while having some drinks with your friends. It's this Saturday, May 17th from 8 to 11, Kenny Falls live at the Keswick Tavern, and there's no cover charge. There it is. There's that sweet spot of the music. Real talk here on Steve Shetler Media, Facebook and YouTube. It's a Monday. We welcome in Pastor Aaron Fleming from New Life Community Church in Wellman, who also happens to be our sponsor of this program. Imagine that. They sponsor something that you're on. That's a good thing.
Well, it's always good to be with you, Steve. How are you doing? What's up
Doing
in
okay.
Steve Shetler media world these days?
Oh, just busy as always. The softball, baseball season is coming up on us quick. Track and golf winding down, going to transition into baseball, softball, so we're going to have a lot of area baseball and softball games here on Steve Shetler Media.
Live streaming?
Live streaming. My wife won't see me during the month of June. She might be happy about that. I'm not sure, but yeah.
We'll let her come in and do some real talk here.
Let her co-host this show.
Yeah. Well, things are happening up in Wellman. It's always good to be down here in the studio with you in the great town of Sigourney, Iowa.
Yep.
But up in Wellman, we got things cooking.
Yeah.
New Life just purchased and took possession of. I think you just had Austin Bayless on a show here.
Yeah, he
not
was
too long
recently here
ago.
in the studio.
A wrestling promoter, so he sold us a building in downtown Wellman. And it was just a lot of fun to work with Austin. Great guy. So I think he got some new wrestling fans. We have not gone to a show yet, but we're gonna have to get to a show to show Austin our support and appreciation. He and Kelsey were just a lot of fun to work with in the process of purchasing the building.
Yeah.
But now we're in there and we're doing renovations, and we got the office set up. Our first worship service will be June 1st in that new building at 257 downtown 8th Avenue in downtown Wellman. Although if you come to check out that first service, our main entrance will actually be from the city parking lot, which is just off of 9th Avenue in the southern part of Wellman there. So there will be signs directing you from the parking lot into the main entrance of the building. But it's exciting. We're going to be under construction as we move in. There will be a lot of moving pieces, and our construction guy says we're probably going to change the bathrooms multiple times. So the bathrooms are going to be changing size and shape, and the men's room right now is a pretty funny, awkward shape. But there will be a place if you need to do business. Oh my! So that's what's going on at New Life. But we're talking real life here, and I want to share with our listeners a fun book that I go back and reread every 2 or 3 or 4 years. It's called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by author Donald Miller. And he got famous for a kind of an autobiographical book called Blue Like Jazz. You ever hear that?
I have heard of that. Yeah.
Okay, and you may have seen it. It was streaming on Netflix for a while. I'm not sure, but they made it into a movie. But A Million Miles in 1,000 Years is the story about how Donald was approached by screenwriters who wanted to make a movie out of Blue Like Jazz. And so he had the kind of unique experience of having screenwriters come to his home and talk about his life and try to figure out how to tell a story out of his life. I think we all know that movies that are based on true events, like they have to change it to make it into a movie, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Lawrence of Arabia?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, don't. Unless you really like long panoramic shots of the desert.
Okay.
It was made back in the days when they just left everything in movies. Like, the camera didn't move back and forth. It was just like Lawrence spent 4 years in the desert, and so if you watch this film, so will you. So they cut out the boring parts and stuff like that. So anyway, Donald Miller had kind of this unique experience of having his life edited by screenwriters, and ultimately he found that it was kind of an embarrassing experience because he started to figure out they weren't all aggressive about it, but he came to the conclusion that he wasn't telling a very good story with his life. He didn't really want anything. He wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't doing anything. About the most excitement that he had was he got himself a Roomba vacuum sweeper. Aren't those the little robots that just roam around? So he got a Roomba, and he said if the story of your life, if you don't want anything, that's a boring story. And if you want a Roomba, that's a stupid story. So this experience for him turned into a whole series of events where he started to learn how to tell a better story with his life. And I just find that so fascinating. And I go back and reread that every couple of years. Yeah. And then I start to think about, okay, what kind of story am I telling with my life? And would anybody want to read a book about my life or see a movie, even with the boring parts taken out? Am I doing anything interesting enough for anybody to be interested in that? Or the alternative is, am I just trying to be comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's easy to stay in the comfort zone.
Oh, it's so comfortable.
Yes.
Park in the man cave on the sofa and watch movies or sports or get a cold beverage and some hot wings.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
But
wouldn't make a great movie.
No.
So I started to preach this as I'm reading through the book of Matthew and thinking about how to preach that to my people at New Life. I start to think, and Donald Miller shares this concept in his book too, that what if my story or my life is a story that God is trying to write, and how cooperative am I as a character? Now, Steve, as you know, I've written a couple of novels myself,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes characters. Like I used to hear authors say this kind of stuff like, well, I wanted my plot to go here, but my characters just wouldn't cooperate. And if you've never written a book, that sounds really stupid. But once you write a book, you kind of understand that. I have figured out that anytime that my characters want to ride in a boat, it's going to be a dead end. I have tried writing so many scenes on boats. And maybe it's just because I don't know enough about boats to write a good scene. But my characters seem to want to be in boats, and it never works. So, other times, what does work is if my characters do things that are crazy and uncomfortable. Like in my second book, all of a sudden it's springtime and one of the characters, I write books about, fantasy warriors and battle axes and swords and stuff. And one of the characters suddenly decides that he wants to fight naked. And so he's running around with his axe and his shield and that's not descriptive. of the nudity. But see, that's fun, but it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
So anyway, the whole thought there is that sometimes even when you're writing a story, your characters just kind of take off and start doing wild and crazy stuff, or they start trying to do comfortable stuff. So if God was trying to write a story with our lives, are we cooperating with him to tell the best story possible, or are we always sneaking off to the garage to have a few beers, or sneaking off to scroll through Facebook for 2 hours, or, maybe the second hour is more interesting than the first hour of scrolling. I don't know. But I wanted to share a couple of Bible verses because I think that a lot of times when we read the Bible, we tell ourselves a story about what's going on that maybe makes the Bible more boring. So just listen to this. This is from Matthew chapter 6. It goes like this. This then is how you should pray. And this is a super familiar prayer for any of our listeners who grew up in church. This, you could probably say this by heart. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Now, there's a couple of different ways to tell that story. That doesn't even appear to be a story, but let's think about it as a story, okay? So, how far away is heaven? Where is heaven, Steve?
It's off in the clouds where the little cherubs float around.
So is that an exciting story?
That is not an exciting story.
You got pretty unexcited there. Like I kind of liked the hand flapping and the clouds
And the harps.
Yeah. And so the story goes that when you die, then you'll go become an angel and you'll have a naked baby butt and you'll play a harp.
Maybe shoot an arrow.
Maybe shoot an arrow, yeah. Not a very exciting story. But what if the story is that the kingdom is coming and heaven is really actually very close to us? And so all of the stuff that's available in heaven, forget about the clouds, forget about the little angels with tiny little wings and naked little baby butts. Forget about that stuff and think about the power and the glory and the love and the mercy and the joy that just must cram the storehouses of heaven. What if that's our story? And that kingdom is getting closer and closer and closer, and we can live in it. And it's like it's just on the other side of like one of those gauzy curtains that I don't understand. I want my curtains to keep the light out, dang it. But what if heaven is that close and Jesus was serious about this prayer? That we pray that God's kingdom would come and his will would be done right here on earth, just as it is in heaven. And that would be kind of a different story. Because otherwise the story is we'll kind of flop around here on earth for a while and hang on by the skin of our teeth and then die, and then we'll go to heaven. I just put myself to sleep with that story.
Yeah.
So, stories.
So you got to make the most of your time here on Earth, is what you were saying.
Yeah, and that would be a lot more fun, and much more interesting, and far more likely to have somebody want to hear about what's going on in your life, even if most of us aren't going to get a movie made about us. I read one time that your chances of getting into a history book, like a high school history book, world history or American history, like 1 in 6 million people in the history of history, 1 in 6 million people get into the history books. Okay. And at the rate the population's growing, it's probably getting, the percentage is lower and lower and lower. So yeah, probably nobody will make a movie about the life of Steve Shetler or Aaron Fleming. But what if they did, brother? Would we be happy? So I think we'll come back again next week and we'll talk about a couple of elements of what makes a story interesting. Because, man, sometimes you start watching a movie on Netflix and you just say, nope, this is just not even interesting. I'm trying to think of an example. I can't. It's all right. We'll come back next week and do it again. Okay. We'll talk about Star Wars next week.
Ooh.
It just got interesting in here, didn't it? All right, folks. We'll see you around next week. Give us a like and a share and say hi to us in the comments section, and we'll see you around soon.
All right, and we do thank New Life Community Church in Wellman for being our sponsor. We'll be back with more real talk next week here on Steve Shetler Media.